Aloha and welcome back to Compass TV. We're here with Jane and we're going to do a past life regression on me. And Jane, tell me about the different types of regression.
Yeah, so there's 3 types of regression. There is age regression, past life regression, and also forensic regression. So past life regression is what we're doing today, and that's when we go into different lifetimes that you've had before. It all hinges on the belief in reincarnation, that you've lived before this life, and there's information out there that's going to help you in this current life. The other 2 kinds, forensic, is used with police, and maybe someone gets abducted and they're trying to find out where they are. You would use forensic hypnosis to get into state to try and find that person, or if you lost your keys at home, you could also use forensic hypnosis to find your keys. And then age regression is a little bit of a no-no in hypnotherapy world, because of confabulation, which is the idea that your brain doesn't remember things perfectly and it actually creates memories and changes them as time goes on. So maybe you've had a group of friends and you talk about that touchdown in high school and you're like, Reggie scored that touchdown. No, Ben scored that touchdown. And then you go to the article, it's like, Philip actually scored it. So that would be an example of everyone remembering it differently and no one remembering it accurately, and that's what confabulation is. So that's why age regression is a little bit of a no-no. Also because clients will come to me and ask, like, hey, I really want to remember this. For some reason I can't, and I want to find out what happened. And your brain actually works in a way where it puts band-aids over memories that you're not ready to process or you're not okay to process. And what you want to do is kind of work through the symptoms. Like if you're having stress, you want to work on the stress. And then if your brain is ready to process it, it will start coming out, usually in your dreams, or you'll naturally remember it. Mm-hmm. And then you can work on the memory from there instead of going in to find something traumatic and then maybe it's not fully accurate. Yeah. And then you're creating more issues. The biggest lawsuit against a hypnotherapist was around this issue, where a woman was age regressed and she had a memory about sexual assault in the family. It created a lot of turmoil, and the therapist actually had to pay out, I think it was about $1 million because of what happened.
Wow. Yeah. So age regression is in your life now, you're remembering things from childhood and stuff. Yeah. That can definitely be hard, because I feel like if I were to recall anything from childhood, like it could be fabricated or completely different or different, like, yeah. So that's so true.
And that's like NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. We even, like you and I will not remember this scene the same because there's so much information. We have to delete certain elements, we distort certain elements, and we generalize things to remember it because it's so much information. It's information overload, and you and I just right now are probably seeing this entire scene differently.
Yeah, in different perspectives. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. So then how do you think people can tap into a past life, and like how does that, the accuracy of that, what is the accuracy level that it could possibly be a past life for someone? As a hypnotherapist, what would you say?
I would say that there are some really fascinating cases where the accuracy is 100% there and they're able to verify it with historical facts.
Yeah, because I've seen like children, they like will say that there's someone else and they're looking for this certain person like in this certain area, and they're like looking for this person that's like in a World War II, or like and they're looking for certain things and facts, and they like say the exact facts that were like of this person.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay,
how did that child know? Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of cases like that, and in certain cultures they actually mark the body when you die so that when you come up in the next life you have scars on your body, and they're like, oh, there's Kasey, we marked her, you know? So it's
like birthmarks and stuff.
It's very interesting. As far as what I tell my clients, I tell them to kind of just take what you can from the experience and what will help you in your current life, because at the end of the day, like, I'm living as Jane in this life. I'm not living as whoever I was in a past life, and so I need to take this information and assimilate it into who I am today. Even those kids, right, they're in that really young age where they're still accessing the past life because they're still stepping into the physical, right? They're like, they were just with spirit, so they're stepping into the physical, so they're still able to access all that information. But I saw a video of a kid that was talking about being Princess Diana, and he had all this information, and it's like, you know, how is that helping him in his current life? It just kind of created a
backtracking.
Yeah, it was like
stuck on
backtracking.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like they know facts that they would never know, that it's like that they pull out of nowhere, that they would never, like, no one's ever told them, you know?
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. So
Interesting.
there's definitely some truth there, and I've even talked to people who have had the experience of speaking languages that are dead, and they're with people who know certain words from that language, and they're like, we have no idea what you're saying, but we know you're speaking this dead language. And in that scenario, they were triggered by a memory, and they started speaking this different language, and they were releasing the trauma of that. And that's one of the main things that people use past life regression for, is that they have some sort of issue that's come up and they don't know what the cause is, and they want to release the trauma. There's a lot of stories about chronic pain where suddenly someone will have a back issue, and they go to a past life and they were, hurt in their back, and that's how they passed away. And so they released that pain in that life, and then it wasn't affecting them in this current life. And that's a great application for past life regression.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's amazing. I'm so excited to go into my past life regression now.
Yeah, so one thing that we do is we always set an intention of what you are looking for.
Okay.
You can always have it be just general answers, general realizations, but some people, like I said, they have a very specific thing that they're looking for. Do you have anything like that in mind?
I would say I would definitely want to tap into how I can fully balance myself. Sometimes I feel like my left brain and my right brain are fighting against each other, and like my creative side and my like analytical side are like fighting against each other. So yeah, a way to balance that, like or to see if there's just like something in a past life where maybe I was super analytical, and like this life I'm super creative, and I'm like kind of like butting heads or something with it. But yeah, I would say balance is something that I want to learn more about. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so we'll set that intention to find balance, and we'll see what past lives come up to give you that answer.
Yeah. Yay! I'm so excited.
Just imagining that you're standing under a waterfall, and the water is cascading from your head all the way down to your toes, washing away any negative thoughts, any tension, any frustration, starting from the forehead as it drips down the back of the neck, down the shoulders, cascading down the forehead and eyes, through the cheeks, the jaws, the neck, the shoulders, letting go of any responsibilities. There's nowhere you need to be right now, nothing you need to do, think, say, feel. There are literally no responsibilities. So just let those wash away. The only responsibility you have in this moment is to listen to the sound of my voice. And even that you may allow yourself to drift in and out of, but always returning. Going even deeper now. Flowing down the arms, elbows, forearms, and fingertips. Moving through the chest, lungs, digestive system, hips, thighs, knees, calves, ankles, and toes. As I count down from 10 to 0, going even deeper with each number, and at 0, entering an even deeper hypnotic sleep. Starting now at 10, 9, deeper still, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Deep.
So I feel like I went into that hypnosis wanting to balance two things, and feeling like I wanted to balance two different sides of my brain. And I came out of it kind of realizing that it's not just two things, that it's like 4 things. And like seeing kind of the triangle, like the triangle in my head now is turned more into like a diamond almost. Because like the dove was on one side, the hawk was on the other, like the protection and then the freedom. And then, like, the staff is, like, the grounding that was, like, grounding it all together. or like, no, I guess grounding it all together is like here. But then I also had to have like that kind of lion that was like a jerk that I didn't like, but like it still played a part in kind of it. Like I still need to be okay with it. And like once like I was okay with it like ripping at like the white freedom and like kind of like being annoying to it, like then the hawk came and then it like the staff then appeared, you know. So it was like in order to get there, like I needed all that to happen. So it was like a cool, and then like when I was visualizing like the triangle, like it's cool that I had like this my own like the river like kind of separating it from everything else. Like it was like this own like little diamond piece that was my own that like I felt was like my center. So yeah, it was just really cool to visualize it all. I've never really visualized it all. Like I've always thought of those things as like thoughts, like, oh, how can I balance like my feminine and my masculine side, or how can I be soft but also a leader, you know, like how can I bring those together? And I always thought of it as like two different things, and I'm like, how am I meshing these things together? They don't mesh together, but it's not two different things. It's like the diamond is like how you bring it together, because it's like on opposite sides, but then there's two connecting things that are connecting at the bottom, like and grounding it. And like part of it was like accepting the bad things that happen with it. And being okay with it. I don't know. That's what I got from it.
And I thought it was really interesting at the end you connected it back with the lion's eye, which was something in the beginning, how you had zoomed in on the eyes,
which I didn't really understand. Yeah. It's so weird. Yeah, that's so weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it can be interesting how the mind starts to take you on a journey, and the beginning makes no sense until the very end.
It didn't, like, because there was parts where I was like, I don't know where I'm trying to go. Like, I was like, I have no clue why I'm seeing this eye, or like why, the most random things. And then at the end, I was like, wait. And like, no, exactly. That was so weird. That's so weird.
Yeah, it is weird, because if you think about the mind, you're like, whoa, I guess I was telling the story from the beginning to the end. How did I know where it was going?
Oh, yeah.
How did I know that, right?
Yeah.
So I have to pose the question back to you, because you kept asking me, now that you've experienced past life regression, where do you feel like the information's coming from?
Yeah. That's hard. Yeah, well, I feel like it's like we're connected in like this big consciousness to like all these things, and like past memories and like events. We can be like connected in some way because we're like living beings, and like we're like part of this like energy channel. So I feel like we're like kind of like, I feel like I'm tuning back into like events and animals and like things that I can comprehend, and like experiences that could have happened, but it's like things like you're saying, like it was like things that were relating to my life now, so like I can pull it into like what I'm struggling with now, or like the balance that I'm lacking and need now. Like it like taught me that lesson, so it was like almost like pulling like little tidbits from like little like conscious other lives around the earth and like times to like kind of bring it back to like what I needed right now. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like not as literal, I guess, as like I imagined, as it being like, oh, this is my past life, and like this is who I was, and like this is like, it wasn't as literal. Like it was more like I was tuning into just like frequencies of like other living things that I felt connected to in some way, form, or time.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, you know?
Which, it could have, someone could take it as either literal or metaphorical.
Yeah.
But either way, you found answers and teachings that help you as Kasey today.
Yeah. Which is interesting, because like, you know, in like reality, I never saw that kind of like diamond until I related it to something that I could understand. So,
Yeah.
It's interesting. and like that story form that like understands.
Yeah, I feel like that could totally be a whole book.
Yeah,
what you
I know.
just
I
went
can
through.
visualize the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. And like, would you say that it was my imagination? Like, I'm not, when I was young, like always when I was young, I always like, oh, I'm a fairy. Like, I like felt really tied to like being this like flying thing, and like always thought I was gonna grow wings. Like, and I'd like fall asleep on my bed with like my back up because I always thought wings would come out eventually. Like when I was really, really young, and I always like thought that I was like connected to some fairy form, and like my parents said I like talked to ghosts and like weird things. Like I would just do weird things.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if that was like my over imagination, and if I was just like really imaginative, or like I was connected to something. So it's interesting, like going through this, like seeing my imagination, but also feeling like it is connected to me in some way. So I don't know.
Yeah, because you started as a fairy, and, and then you went to another life.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting that you say that, because I feel like throughout our lives we get confirmation of maybe what we were in past lives or what energies we have, because everyone brings something different to the table. Like you're saying you feel connected to fairies, and fairies have such a different elemental quality than maybe someone that relates to Arcturian or Palladian or Syrian or whatever it is. And if you are able to understand, like, oh, I have a connection there, and that's why I have these abilities, and that's something else I bring to the table. But of course, understanding if that's real or not, you have to kind of go through life and have multiple confirmations, like how you're saying, oh, I had this experience as a child and this, and people would say this, and then now I'm having this. So that seems like a lot of confirmations.
Yeah, I was like obsessed with fairies, and I'd like write about fairies. Like when I was young, like 24/7, I'd make like houses for them. Like that was my main thing, like to go in the woods and make houses for them. But it's like, it almost felt like I was like returning back to that like inner child self, like when you were like telling me to go backwards, like into like the past. It was like the fairy first came out, and then like when I went really more back, it was more like that other life of animals that I saw in the desert.
More of an Egyptian quality.
Yeah,
you said you were on a
more
throne.
like Egyptian, like. Then there's like Native American. I don't know. There's like a lot of like indigenous almost feel to it.
Yeah,
like, a mixture of that. But it's really interesting. And I've had experiences where people have like I had this. I don't know if I want to say this on film, but I had this friend that like we were doing a mushroom trip together, and she said that I was like this Native American, like she saw me as like this Native American woman in a past life, and like she saw me in like braids, and like that's what I pictured like when I was old, like a Native American woman in braids.
Oh wow,
it's just interesting. Yeah,
a lot of confirmations for you.
Yeah,
and take those confirmations and see how they show up in your life, right?
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So I feel like tied to maybe that kind of area in my life more, too.
Yeah.
So.
Good.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I want to learn about other people's experiences now.
Oh my goodness, there are so many stories out there. If you really want to get into it, read Dolores Cannon's books, because she literally just writes down the hypnosis sessions, and you can hear the question and answer, and she has done so many sessions. But yeah, she has the best documentation of past life regressions, and her book Convoluted Universe, you can go in and it will have like legends that she talks to people about, like,
and there's just like a lot of unanswered things in this world that like people, I mean, we don't even know where we die, so it's like all like up in the air, so it's just like, why not explore like the most random things like that to see if they're real, because like at the end of the day, like we don't really know why we're on this planet, just on this rock, just chilling. So
I mean, there's a really interesting concept that I was researching recently about like God abandonment, which is this thing that people go through where they feel like they've been abandoned by spirit, and it actually pushes us to grow and have a better connection in the long term. So there's this whole like interesting journey that we all go through, right? We come into our body from spirit, and then we spend our whole life trying to figure out that balance of being physical and spiritual.
Yeah.
And there are times when we feel like spirit's not with us.
Yeah.
And this whole thing leads us to the end where we're returning to spirit and we bring all those learnings with us. So it's really interesting to tap into other lives and learn about their journey and see how we can take those learnings and have an even better journey here.
Yeah, it's interesting. In your past life regressions, have you like felt balance and connection to that, like physical, spirit? Like, what were your experiences with your past life regressions?
Yeah, I mean, speaking about the abandonment trauma, I had really bad starseed abandonment trauma when I came into this life, and I always thought it was something that happened to me when I was younger, but it actually was me being abandoned coming here, and I had to release that trauma, and it was like a huge weight coming off my shoulders. I felt amazing after that, and I was just better able to be present. So I think that sometimes when you have severe trauma from other lives, it just takes away your energy from being present in this life. And that's kind of my whole philosophy, is like, what can empower you in this life? And that's why I work with people on addictions, because I feel like that's disempowering, and also, you know, changing their thought patterns to be more empowering. And if you're stuck in the past, like a past life, you have a pain or some sort of trauma that's not been released.
Yeah.
That's just part of your power that's not in the present moment. So
yeah,
I will do any healing practices that allow people to take back their power.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I keep like thinking back to the movie Soul. It's just like, Soul is like such a good visual of that. Like, people can be on Earth, but they're like little souls, like away, like in like the OCD like mind, or like away, like being like obsessed about like numbers, you know, like the
lost
visual,
souls.
the lost souls. Yeah, it's just like there's something to that really like made sense and like resonated. So it's just really interesting that you can like tap into the subconscious mind and like pull it back almost.
And we were joking because the lost soul, they end up having this like giant pirate ship going to the sand dunes and saving him, and we were laughing. We're like, it's an art car from Burning Man. They're being saved. Like, just go to Burning Man.
That's on my list.
Yeah.
Well, I've learned a lot today, and I think some people might watch and not understand because they are in the shoes of either of us. Like, I'm trying to think of like how I can like relay the message to people who maybe are in like their own little boxed worlds that they can't really understand. Like, but yeah, just know that because you watched it and opened up your mind a little bit more, that that's the first step. It doesn't mean you have to get it, but just opening up your mind just a little bit more is amazing to start. So yeah, you're doing good.